Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited, and I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call, particularly those of you calling in for the first time and those that will be listening to the replay over the next 24 to 48 hours. We like to move quickly through these calls and bottom line the information for you. We know you're busy people. You have other things to do. We have a standard format. We spend a few minutes talking about the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar, which we continue to believe is the base currency for the reset of some of these other pre-valued currencies. A few minutes talking about the program we put in place to assist you, and then we go to a brief Q&A. So let's go ahead and get started and talk a little bit about the situation in Iraq. First, by way of disclaimer, Trusts Unlimited is not the purveyor of the dinar and these other currencies. We're not advocating either the sale or purchase of these currencies, but as rather substantial currency holders ourselves, we're sharing with you the information that we think is relevant. And the most relevant piece of information from our perspective would be the potential window for the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar. Now, the situation in Iraq, as usual, is rather fluid, and so this window has fluctuated to reflect this fluidity. But right now, we're looking at a window of between 30 and 45 days for the reinstitution of the dinar, and this is for a lot of reasons. Things over the last week or two have really been moving in the right direction in Iraq, and so the window reflects these movements. The government of al-Kazimi is now officially in place. The CBI has basically completed its work, and it's announced the completion of the project to delete the zeros and the possession of the lower denoms and coinage in the 8 regional banks. They've also stated that the last currency auction took place on May 21st. The United States has announced that it's going to assist Iraq with a $100 million funding of their stabilization fund. The new Iraqi tariff law is supposed to go into effect on July 1st, and it can be credibly argued that the law is basically moot without the reinstitution of their currency. The global price of a barrel of oil has increased substantially over the last few weeks and last month, actually, which is, of course, helpful for Iraq. Iraq is also in the position of renegotiating payments for the balance of the reparations due to Kuwait. And interestingly enough, al-Amiri has announced his resignation. Now, who is al-Amiri? He is the leader of the largest pro-Iranian coalition, al-Fatah, and that is significant because it's been the pushback from the pro-Iranian coalitions within the parliament that had stifled the creation and establishment of the new government. Now, the Minister of Finance did say that the 2020 budget and many of the government reforms would take as long as 90 days to come to fruition, but this should not stop the reinstitution of the dinar within the next 30 to 45 days. And that's because the major issues that have blocked the reinstitution of the currency have been dealt with. Number one, the new government has been established, is in place. Number two, the CBI has completed its work, meaning that the currency auctions have stopped. The project to delete the zeros will be officially completed within a matter of weeks, if not days. The lower denoms and coinage are in the possession of the 8 regional banks. And lastly, Iran, and by extension, the corrupt Iranian, pro-Iranian officials in Iraq have been neutralized. So everything that had been an impediment up to this date, over the last decade, for the reinstitution of the dinar have been resolved. Now, because we're talking about Iraq, there seems to be an endless supply of X factors that seem to manifest themselves at the last second. But at this point, we're simply in a place we've never been before. So in conclusion, I'll just state it one more time. I see nothing right now, credibly, that would stop the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar in the next 30 to 45 days. So that's very good news. But it also means that those of you that have not as yet gotten your affairs in order prior to this reinstitution and revaluation have very little time left to do so. Most dinarians are hardworking individuals who have never in their life had to manage a substantial amount of money, certainly a substantial amount of money that came into their possession literally overnight. So to assist them, Trusts Unlimited has put into place a turnkey program to assist you. It is a two-phased program. Phase 1 is pre-RV. Phase 2 is post-RV. Pre-RV involves the establishment of a package of pre-RV asset protection trusts with the assignment of your dinar and other currencies on paper to that trust package. Post-RV involves all of the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you after the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. So let's start with phase 1, which is, again, pre-RV and the establishment of a package of irrevocable trusts. There are some very good reasons why Trusts Unlimited has established a package of irrevocable trusts, primarily because it's the best asset protection available domestically. There are other entities that one can establish. For example, individuals can establish LLCs and sub-S corporations, and they can provide some level of asset protection. But LLCs and sub-S corporations and even family-limited partnerships are business structures designed primarily to separate business assets from personal assets. The possession of these currencies is a personal asset. In addition, courts have ruled that LLCs and sub-S corporations that are owned in the majority by one individual or a closely held group can be pierced for civil litigation. So these entities are not going to provide the asset protection you're going to need and want. Some individuals have established loving or revocable trusts, and these trusts will allow your estate to bypass the cost and delay of probate and can, in some cases, substantially reduce and even eliminate the federal estate tax. But loving or revocable trusts can provide no privacy or asset protection, so they're going to be inappropriate for your needs. Lastly, individuals have established individual or single irrevocable trusts, and they do provide the highest level of asset protection. But there is an inherent flaw in the single irrevocable trust, and it's this. If any asset within that trust is involved in civil litigation, that would necessarily bring all of your other assets and net worth into that litigation because they're all owned by that same entity, that one single irrevocable trust. The solution is to establish a package of irrevocable trusts, and I will explain to you why such a package will protect your net worth both pre- and post-RV, and why the package must be established prior to the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. So let's review these reasons. First, by establishing our package of trusts, you will preserve your privacy and your anonymity. That's because assets held within our trust package are sealed, meaning that the general public will have no knowledge of your net worth or your actual holdings. Second, by establishing this trust package, you will be able to successfully avoid personal IRS scrutiny. If you are holding these currencies in direct title when they revalue, the IRS computers will most likely spit out an audit. And with the potential magnitude of this revaluation, you're probably looking at a full-blown 6-year audit. Such an audit would be time-consuming, it would certainly be frustrating because it will have come along at the precise time these currencies have revalued, and you have much more important things you'd rather be devoting your time to. And lastly, the cost of a 6-year audit would probably be more than the cost of our asset protection trust package. On the other hand, if your asset protection trust package is in place pre-RV and you have assigned your currencies to that trust package, you will have successfully transferred the taxable event of the revaluation from yourself personally to the trust package. Now, this is important for 2 reasons. First, there's only about a 10% chance of an IRS audit if this revaluation were to occur within a sophisticated trust package such as ours. But second, and most importantly, even if the IRS determines to audit your trust, they can't do a 6-year audit. Why? Because the only taxable event within the trust will be the revaluation itself. The third reason you'd want to establish our trust package is if you plan on gifting currencies to family and friends in certain situations. Philanthropic gifting can always be done on a tax-preferred basis, either pre- or post-RV. But in order to avoid a substantial 40% federal gift tax, you're going to need to gift currencies prior to their revaluation. Now, if you're gifting to individuals that you have no problem giving them the currency to exchange for themselves, or giving them the U.S. dollar lump sum after you have negotiated the exchange, that can be accomplished outside of a trust with a standard gift letter. But if you are hesitant for any reason to give these individuals the post-RV lump sum, you can gift to them through our specially designed gift subtrust. And by gifting through this subtrust, not only will their U.S. dollars be protected along with yours, but you will have complete control of those post-RV proceeds, meaning that you can manage, invest, and distribute that money to those individuals as you deem appropriate. The fourth reason you'd want to establish this pre-RV asset protection trust package is because it's been structured in such a way as to allow your estate to bypass the cost and delay of probate and the federal estate tax. I'll give you 2 quick scenarios. Scenario number 1, you purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs an estate of $25 million. Now, this estate must go through probate, a process that ordinarily can take anywhere from 6 to 18 months. But probate is a public disclosure process, meaning that the general public will be aware of the size of your estate, who your heirs are, and how much they each stand to inherit. So if anyone feels they have a legitimate claim against you, your estate, or your heirs, they can simply file that claim with the probate court. And that could tie the estate up for years and in some cases even decades. And your heirs will have either limited access or no access at all to their respective inheritance until the probate process is completed. Then there's something referred to as the federal estate tax. This is the tax that the federal government would assess in order for that estate to be transferred to heirs. Under current law, approximately $10 million of that $25 million estate would bypass any federal estate tax, but the balance could be taxed as much as 55%. Now, this scenario is not only unacceptable, it's completely and totally avoidable. How? Scenario number 2. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, you assign those currencies on paper to our asset protection trust package. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs that very same estate of $25 million, but this time protected in our asset protection trust package. As a result, there will be no probate. There will be no public disclosure of your estate. Your heirs will have immediate access to their respective inheritance, and the federal estate tax will be zero, saving your heirs as much as 55% of their inheritance. The fifth reason you'd want to establish this trust package is for some very specific asset protection benefits. One pre-RV, one post-RV. Pre-RV, this trust package will allow you to circumvent something called the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act. What does that mean? Under our system of civil procedure, you can only be sued for what you actually own in title or the value of property at the time you transfer it out of title to a trust package similar to ours. So let's take the previous example from before. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. You transfer those currencies to our trust. They subsequently revalue for $25 million. You begin to live a lifestyle more reflective of your newfound wealth, and a couple of years down the road, someone sees that you're living rather comfortably and decides for whatever reason that they're going to sue you. Well, this prospective plaintiff has a couple of problems. First, he or she better have a very strong case and very deep pockets, because this trust package has been structured in such a way as to make it extremely expensive and extremely time-consuming to pursue civil litigation. But second, and most importantly, once any prospective plaintiff learns that pursuant to the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act, the only thing they could ever win by way of a civil award would be $5,000, the value of the currencies at the time you transferred them out of title and to our trust package, and none of the post-RV value of $25 million, there will be no lawsuit. Post-RV, there's a benefit I like to refer to as limited liability stop-loss. This protects you from future bad acts after you have acquired this wealth. This protection is accomplished through a legal strategy called segregation of assets. This is why we established a package of trusts, and this is how it would work. Once again, we'll use the same example. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000, transfer the currencies to the trust. They subsequently revalue for $25 million. And now that you have $25 million in trust, you decide to make some purchases. So you purchase a larger primary residence, a vacation home, perhaps a half a dozen rental properties for tax write-off and additional cash flow, a couple of cars, a boat, and let's say an RV. But as you purchase these items, you place each of them in their own separate subtrust to be managed by your master trust, the trust that you established pre-RV as the initial trust of the package. Now, why is this critical from an asset protection standpoint? Well, let's say one day you're driving one of your new cars, you have an accident, the accident is clearly your fault, and tragically someone is seriously injured or even killed. Well, the family of the victim is going to want to sue you. But remember, civil suits are about monetary awards, and you don't legally own anything. So the plaintiffs would be left to sue the owner of the car that you were driving. Well, who owns that car? One of your subtrusts, of which you are merely the beneficiary. And what's in that subtrust? Merely that one car and the car insurance policy. In that scenario, the car insurance carrier will negotiate an out-of-court settlement with the victim's family. You will not be involved in those rather unpleasant negotiations. The car insurance carrier will repair or replace your car, making you whole. And this is important. All of your other assets and net worth are safely protected in the other subtrusts. Why? Because under the law, those separate subtrusts are separate legal entities or persons having nothing to do with the underlying car accident, and the plaintiffs would have no standing to pursue those separate legal entities. So your trust package works very much the way a barge would work, where all of the valuable cargo is stored in a series of small compartments. Why? In the event that any compartment is ever breached, the only potential loss would be the cargo in that one compartment. The cargo in the other compartments is safe and secure due to the firewalls, and the barge will never sink. Now, these benefits are lost to you if you do not establish your package of trusts prior to the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. Now, there is one other benefit, and it's this. If you are, in fact, the holder of one of our pre-RV asset protection trust packages, then you will be eligible to participate in Phase 2, all of the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you after the revaluation of the dinar. I'll just make mention of one here today. Trusts Unlimited will be sponsoring a post-RV seminar to be held in Disney World, Florida, approximately 30 days after the revaluation of the dinar. Present at that seminar will, of course, be the staff of Trusts Unlimited to assist you with the management and funding of your trust packages post-RV. Many of our clients have expressed the desire to establish scholarship funds, foundational trusts, special needs trusts, charitable remainder trusts, and even the more complicated 501c3 nonprofit and offshore trusts. And the proper way to fund those entities is with a direct transfer of funds from your asset protection trust to those newly formed entities. We will also have our tax specialists there, and with this newly acquired wealth, you're going to want to take advantage of some of the more sophisticated tax strategies to legally preserve as much of your net worth as possible. We'll also have our independent fee-based wealth managers there as well. You're going to want to reposition assets after the revaluation for a number of reasons. First, we know statistically that 95% of all windfalls, however large and from whatever source, are lost within 3 to 5 years due to inexperience, mismanagement, and fraud. We also know that under the new G20 bank bail-in provisions, the failure of banks in the future will no longer be made whole through the general taxing authority of the respective governments, but first and foremost by the confiscation of funds at the accounts at those banks. So this is another reason to get money out of the banks and in other markets. And lastly, the general global shift from fiat-based to Basel III compliant commodity-backed currencies in and of itself is going to create extremely volatile financial markets, and you're going to want a substantial amount of your net worth in tangible assets to avoid that financial volatility. Now, our trust package is initially a package of 10 trusts consisting of one master trust that will hold your assigned currencies pre-RV and financial assets like bank accounts and investment accounts post-RV, one optional gift subtrust, which can at any time be converted to a standard subtrust, and 8 additional standard subtrusts to hold physical assets like cars, homes, boats, etc. Now, this was the simplification of a rather sophisticated trust package that we utilized in the past for our more affluent clients, a package that had an initial cost of anywhere from $6,000 to $10,000. But about a decade ago, when we decided to work with dinarians, we knew that that price tag would simply be unaffordable for too many. So by simplifying the package, we've been able to reduce the cost to $3,000. Now, there are several ways you can pay for that. If you pay us up front, we'll discount the price to $2,500, saving you an additional $500. If that's not possible, we do have a deferred payment arrangement. You'd make an initial payment of $525, which sum would basically offset our out-of-pocket costs just to produce and deliver to you your trust package. The balance of the $3,000 would then be paid in $100 monthly installments. We will charge no interest. The only proviso is once the revaluation of the dinar occurs, Any unpaid balance would need to be paid within 30 days. With this approach, anyone that has currencies and understands the need for getting their trust in place and their affairs in order pre-RV should be in a position to afford to do so. One other suggestion, we do accept credit cards. Pay us up front with a credit card. Not only will you get the $500 discount, but the minimum payment on your card would be substantially less than $100 a month you'd be paying us under our deferred payment arrangement. But we will work with you in whatever method works best for you. Our objective is to help you get your affairs in order and your trust in place prior to the revaluation of these currencies for all of the reasons that we've stated here. One other issue with regard to our trust package. The $3,000 cost or the $2,500 cost if you pay us up front is a one-time only cost. There are no subsequent asset or management charges. The only additional cost of this trust lifetime are the rather nominal paralegal fees for making changes and funding subtrusts. I'll give you one example. Let's say after the revaluation you call us 2 or 3 months later and say, I'm about to buy a $400,000 beach house and I wish to place it in one of these subtrusts to protect it. The paralegal fee to establish that subtrust will be somewhere between $150 and $250, a very nominal fee to establish a trust to protect a $400,000 asset. So this trust package is designed to work with you not only prior to the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies, but to assist you for the balance of your life, really. Now, we're going to go to Q&A in just a moment, but before we do, I'd like to, for the benefit of our newer callers, tell you just a little bit about Trusts Unlimited and why you may want to contact us to get our initial no-obligation package. Our trust package was authored by our attorney, Robert Bly. He's been a practicing attorney for over 40 years, specializing in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning. I myself hold degrees in political science, macroeconomics, and finance. I've worked in these areas for over 38 years, and I, along with my clients, were personally involved in the reinstatement of the Kuwaiti dinar in the early 90s. So between the two of us, Robert Bly and I have over 78 years' experience working precisely in this rather niche area, and I frankly know of no firm that can make that claim. Now, Bob and I have been working together for about a decade in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning. And it has been disheartening from time to time to see people walk away from sound estate planning and trust creation because of the mistaken belief that by doing so, they have somehow lost control of their assets and their affairs. In point of fact, it's just the reverse. Under our system of civil litigation, it's when you own assets in direct title that you can lose control of them or lose them outright. And it's at precisely those times in life that you need and want control. If you've lived for any length of time, you've either experienced in your own life or through friends and family things like unexpected divorce, permanent incapacitation, the onset of dementia, premature death and prolonged and complicated probate processes. Then there are investment losses, business losses, and even bankruptcies. The number 2 loss of wealth now in the aggregate, courtesy of the information age, is identity theft. But the number 1 loss of personal wealth remains confiscation through civil litigation. Anything you own in direct title can be taken from you. And the more wealth that you possess in direct title, the greater the risk that you will suffer some form of civil litigation. So the only way that you can manage, protect, and control everything at all times and in all circumstances is through the establishment of a package of irrevocable trusts, and particularly if you have an asset like these currencies that you anticipate a substantial increase in value. And we at Trusts Unlimited will do everything we can to help you accomplish your personal and financial objectives both pre- and post-RV, as we understand them. So again, thanks so much for listening to the call. I will be going to the Q&A in just a moment. I suggest our newer callers have a pen and paper handy to get our contact information. We will be happy to send you our no-obligation package. It has a lot of information about us, about the revaluation, about these trusts. You can review the package, contact us if you have any questions. We'll be happy to assist you in every way. There will be no consultation fee. Lastly, should you decide to proceed with establishing a trust package, everything you need has been included in that initial package. So we'll be going to Q&A here. 2 quick rules on the Q&A. First, we take no service calls on the Q&A. Our clients can contact us by phone or email if they have a service question. And second, for obvious reasons, in order to participate in the Q&A, your name and number must be on the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and open now. And while I'm waiting for any potential questions, I'd like to give you our contact information. You can go to our website, which is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc.com. Our email address is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc@gmail.com. Our phone number is 307-274-4122. If you'd like to listen to a recent conference call playback, or if you'd be kind enough to refer us to someone that might be interested in our services, you can either go to YouTube and then go to Trusts Unlimited, or you can go to IQD calls and go to Trusts Unlimited, or you can simply dial the same number that you dialed for this live call this afternoon, with the exception of the last number. Rather than dialing a 4, you'll dial a 3 and then use the same access code, which is 739-394-pound. If you'd like to be included on our email list, you can go to our website, go to the bottom, enter your name and email address where indicated. You should be on our email list within 24 hours. Bear in mind that we only send emails out very periodically pre-RV, but after the reinstitution of the Dinar, emails may be going out as often as weekly. And for the benefit of our existing clients, once that reinstitution occurs, the calls that we are doing today with regard to our package will stop, and our Wednesday calls will be based on assisting our existing clients with the negotiation of the exchange, the management and funding of your trusts, and a lot of other technical issues that we'll be dealing with regard to the management of the post-RV proceeds. So let's go to our Q&A here. Our first caller is area code 801. That's 801. Go ahead.
Jim, how are you today?
Fine, sir. Who is this?
Yeah, this is Clay Blackwell.
Yes, sir.
I always get interrupted. Sir. I'm sorry?
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I said I always get interrupted when I want to turn on your call, and I miss the first part all the time. Somebody calls me or somebody gets in my way. I'm going to have to lock myself in a room to do it. But I wondered, without repeating what you said, I wondered if you mentioned the entourage of the delegation that is starting a dialogue with the Iraqi parliament and new government effective tomorrow. Did you bring that up in your presentation?
Well, I did roughly mention that the United States and Iraqi government are in negotiations, and the United States is funding the $100 million stabilization fund. I also mentioned the discussions that are now going on between Iraq and Kuwait for restructuring the balance due with regard to the reparations. I also got into the Minister of Finance and what they intend to accomplish over the next 90 days. So I'm not exactly sure if that's what you're referring to, but you're free to go ahead and mention that right here if I've neglected to discuss that.
No. That's. I think you hit the nail on the head. Everyone seems to think that may be the turning point. The people that I listen to, you as well, that might be the turning point for Iraq. But what I don't understand is why Iraq would continue to look to other ways to solve their money crisis, such as borrowing money externally reducing the value of the dinar. It just seems to not make any sense. So it seems like it's going backwards.
Well, the answer to that is that once the government's formed and they've resolved the issues with the protesters, one of the major issues is resolving the corruption within the government and implementation of the accountability and justice law. So the people that know they're in a world of hurt are doing everything they can to postpone the inevitable. And you have to look no further than our own country to see how that works. We got a Senate that's just subpoenaed 30 people having to do with corruption. So, unfortunately, those that are in power tend to be corrupt, and absolute power tends to corrupt absolutely. So, this is what they've been dealing with. Add to that, or layer onto that we're dealing with an Eastern tribal culture and the sectarianism that's gone on within the faith of Islam as well. Lastly, the intrusion and interference of the Iranians. So the situation has a lot of layer of complications, and it's taken them years to peel that onion back and get to the nub of the matter.
Doesn't the IMF and the United Nations have to pull them out of Chapter 7? I mean, even if they revalue, their money still isn't any good unless it's on the world trading, on the world.
They can if they resolve their internal domestic and political problems and they reinstitute their currency, the IMF, the UN, the World Trade Organization, all of these people will resolve whatever issues they have with Iraq. Basically, they're saying, when you get your house in order, then we'll resolve the issues we have with you.
Okay. All right. That answers my question. So basically, we still don't have a good idea as to when all that's going to happen.
Well, in my view, I'm looking at a reinstitution in the next 30 to 45 days. I talked about the fluidity of the situation. One of the things is allegedly the tariff law goes into effect July 1st, and that law basically makes no sense without the reinstitution of the currency.
Okay. I don't understand what that is, but if you say so, that's good. That's good enough for me. They're also talking about they're
going to need a viable, functioning domestic currency for the tariffs have to do with the financial relations and the trade from country to country. Well, they can't keep functioning using the U.S. dollar as a reserve currency. They're going to have to reinstitute their currency at some point and demonstrate that that's the functional currency and that they've eliminated the use of the U.S. dollar.
Okay. Do you think that when they do reinstate, it'll be on par with the U.S. dollar or a little less?
It seems to me that it would have to be at the very least on par with the dollar, because it's the only way that the Iraqi national will not use the dollar and use their own currency. The reinstitution of their currency makes no sense if the Iraqi citizen is not using that currency, so it would need to be at or at a slight premium over the dollar to justify an Iraqi dumping the dollar and using their own currency.
Isn't there still a lot of American money floating around in Iraq that the Iraqis are actually using as opposed to the Iraqi dinar?
Yes, and that's going to continue until the Iraqi dinar has the purchasing power in country on par with the U.S. dollar.
Makes sense. Okay. Thanks, Jim.
Sure. Okay, Clay. Bye-bye. All right, our next caller is area code 405. That's 405.
Hi, Jim. This is Doug in Oklahoma City.
Hey, Doug. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Glad to talk to you again.
That's good.
Listening to the last question answered one of my questions. You mentioned three significant things: May 21st, the last auction, government completely in place, and the July 1st tariff law. I didn't quite understand why the tariff law was important, but now I do, because it basically means that they can have a functional currency. As far as the significance of the government being completely in place, I have missed anything that happened this week. Does that mean that all the ministerial positions have been filled?
Yes. They've been filled.
Very good.
I believe the Parliament completed its last vote, I believe, on June 6th. So the government's in place.
Very good. The last auction, May 21st, what's the significance of that?
Well, they want to reinstitute the currency. Right now, they're selling their own currency to get U.S. dollars to use as basically their functional currency in country. By reinstituting, they would substitute their own currency, as they should, for the U.S. dollar. So there would be no need for the auction.
Excellent. In reference to the post-reinstitution and RV worldwide, we had originally believed that we might be able to join you in a conference. I think it was going to be in Orlando, but that probably isn't the case. But let's say that we move forward and we're looking at a reinstitution in country of July 5th. This is hypothetical, July 15th, and say it takes 2 weeks to a month, so that puts us out to about August 15th. What would be the communication methodology that we would have in, I guess, figuring out what we're going to do? Our intent was to attend the conference and then sort of get a basis of what we do next.
All right, well, let me tell you what our discussions have been. Our intention is to have the seminar in Disney. The problem is we do not know the evolution or de-evolution of the COVID-19 virus, which would affect, obviously, our ability to travel.
Right.
If we're pushed out to August, we might be okay. I mean, we got hundreds of thousands of people running around protesting and burning buildings down, so I would imagine a trip to Disney wouldn't be that, out of the box. But on the other hand, a lot of our clients are older individuals, and getting on an airplane is still not a really good idea at this time. So let's assume hypothetically that the Dinar does reinstitute in the very near future, meaning that the seminar in Disney would be impractical. What we're probably going to do is provide all of that information on a DVD. In other words, have all the presentations in our office on a DVD and make it available on our website. But remember, after the reinstitution, all of the calls as I'm doing them now are going to stop, and we're going to be spending all of our time talking about all of these issues anyway. So one of the reasons we wanted to have the Disney trip is because it was going to be an informative / celebratory event. But obviously, if that's not going to be a practical option, then we're going to have to go with Plan B, which is to do the DVD, make it available on our website, and then do conference calls weekly with Q&As.
One of the things that I had anticipated is that you would probably have arranged to have people that had been well vetted to help those people who, like us, who now have resources to invest, and what to do with them, how to protect them, other than just the protection provided by the Irrevocable Trust. And, those people now, if we can't do the conference, probably wouldn't be on site. And, we've done well. We have a small business, but, we don't have the resources that we would if the Dinars were to revalue. And I'm just not very comfortable walking in the place and asking them for help.
The individuals we're talking about, we intend on having at our office to do their presentation.
Oh, okay, very nice.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying we're going to do everything the way we did. We were planning on it. We were just going to have individuals in our office to do this. So we're kind of up in the air on that because we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know how quickly this is going to happen. So when we first need to understand where we are with the virus. Once we understand that will tell us where we're going to go, Plan A or Plan B. Once we figure that out, we will inform everyone what we're going to do, why we're going to do it, how we're going to do it, and we'll proceed from there. What we might end up doing is having a series of just conference calls like this, where one call might be me, one call might be our investment guy, one call might be our tax guy, one call might be just the attorneys talking about asset management, one call might be just how to negotiate the exchange. We'll figure all that out when we know what the scenario is.
And you're right, negotiating the exchange, because at this time, one of the biggest things outstanding is we don't know how the IRS is going to rule on this investment. That would be
right.
one of the big
we
things
need the reinstitution. We need the reinstitution from our perspective in order to force the IRS to answer our question, because we're going to tell them, we're going to sue you if our clients get hurt because you didn't answer our question. We have a right to know how you're going to tax the imminent event. We have a right to know that. We have a need to know that. If you don't tell us, you can't come post facto and sue us.
And you talk about the imminent event. That would be the time frame between the reinstitution and the Dinar going on the Forex, right? Okay.
Correct.
Last question. The structure and the setup of handling the different levels of dinar holders. I mean, somebody who comes with 500,000 dinars is going to be in a different category than somebody who comes with 20 million, something like that. Have you had an idea about thinking about how the structure would be? Would you group people in different categories as far as, the investment?
There is one grouping that we're thinking about, and that is, technically, some of the investment options that would be presented to you legally can only be presented to an accredited investor. So some of these people, technically on paper, would be an accredited investor, meaning they can look at, some of the more esoteric high-risk investments, but they don't have the acumen or the experience to understand risk. So it's not so much how much wealth a person has acquired, but when you're talking about investments, the important thing from an investment advisor standpoint is suitability. So the fact that someone, Joe Lunchbox, is all of a sudden an overnight millionaire does not make him an accredited investor, and we still have a suitability issue by presenting certain things to he or she. So we've got to kind of work that out. I think, once again, we're devoting our time right now to these calls and then servicing people that are establishing trust. But once the reinstitution happens, we'll devote 100% of our time to dealing with those issues.
Well, talking about investment and growth, people, and I'm older, my biggest concern is asset preservation because, if you have the wealth that is delivered to you because of the revaluation, that's probably the greatest return that we're ever going to ever see, ever. And my concern would be asset preservation.
Right, I agree. And that's our objective, too. It's very simple. The more wealth you have, the less risk you should be taking. Now, an individual that's making $50,000 a year and now has 20 million USD from this exchange, he can double or triple his income with very little risk. So if he wants to take high risks, we're just not going to be working with him. They're going to have to go somewhere else for that, because we're going right down Main Street with the investments, and we're going to deal with steady income streams, taking advantage of whatever tax strategies can assist to pay the lowest amount of tax legally. We're for tax avoidance, not tax evasion. So we'll deal with it, in that plane too. So the things that we'll be offering people are not going to be very high-risk rock and roll stuff, because it's not only it's unnecessary, it's an inherent risk that we're not willing to take.
I agree. And once you have that, the value of the dinars at a revalued rate, that's all the appreciation you're probably going to ever need. You just have to protect what you have.
Exactly. And unfortunately, there is a psychology with some people that they like to double down and take absurd risks. You wouldn't believe the people that contact me with all kinds of schemes, not unlike the people that have established these groups that are saying, hey, I'm going to get you, $50 on your dinar and $30 on your dong. The number of people that we've kicked to the curb with that there are dozens and dozens of them. They're just out there. So, we just want to have nothing to do with them. Our thing is pay your taxes, invest wisely, don't take undue risks, and be thankful that you participated in something that's never happened before and will never happen again.
Yeah, and why look over your shoulder the rest of your life? Jim, thank you very much. As usual, love to hear your calls on Wednesday, and we look forward to seeing what happens.
Yes, sir. Take care, Doug.
You're welcome, Jim. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, our next caller is area code 931. That's 931. Go ahead.
Hey, good afternoon, Jim. This is Manny from Tennessee.
Yes, sir, down the road.
Just down the road from you.
That's right.
Quick question, and I missed the first part of your call, and it's been a while since I've been able to catch a live call. Did you address the oil and gas law that's still needed?
No, I did not address that. The oil and gas law does have a couple of things they want to tweak, and it was one of the things that the Minister of Finance alluded to when he said it's going to take 90 days to resolve everything, get the budget done and all of that. I did go on to say, though, that I do not believe that that's going to affect the reinstitution of the currency. But you are right. That's one of a dozen things that probably need to be tweaked. But once the reinstitution happens, and I think the clock is really ticking now with the tariff law scheduled for July 1st, I think that will be dealt with pretty quickly.
Has your contact let you know that have they printed the new denominations in Iraq, or do you know anything about that?
My understanding is that they're in the possession of the 8 regional banks, but they're not available for dissemination to the general public.
I see. Last question I have for you, Jim. Is there an option to have the conference in this particular part of the world, maybe somewhere outside of your offices at a conference area, or do a deadline date for this year to have a conference at all?
Well, as I said to the previous caller, we're kind of waiting to see what happens with the COVID before we make a final determination about that. And, yeah, there are a lot of potential options for us to consider, but the moment the currency reinstitutes, we will assess where we are with the virus and with the likelihood of being able to travel, and then we'll make a determination at that time, and we will get an email out to everyone, and of course we'll address it at our very next call and say what our intentions are.
Yeah, because I'm sure there's several different states that have different agendas when they're going to, provide us the ability to be able to get folks in that area.
Our concern is not just the location. Our concern are people, particularly older people, having to get on an airplane with all the recircled air and all of that. People just don't want to do that. I mean, I've had calls from people that are saying, well, we already knew that we had a certain number of people that simply couldn't travel because of their health or their age, and so our plan was to do a DVD anyway and make it available either on our website or the hard DVD. But once again, once the reinstitution happens, we'll assess at that moment where we are with the virus and then make a decision about how we're going to proceed.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your time, and we'll be looking forward to our next call, even if I have to catch it on a replay.
Yes, sir. Well, thanks for calling. Here, man.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right. Let's see. Well, it looks like Clay came back in. This is 801. Go ahead, Clay.
Jim, thank you very much. I forgot a couple of things. One was in the last call, it was truncated. You'd mentioned being on another call that you needed to be on. Was that mentioned in this call as well? Because I can always listen to the replay.
Some of the information was the result of that call, but I didn't specifically identify it as such. One of the main things that call dealt with was how to assist Iraq short-term with the budget deficit that was the result of the precipitous drop in the price of oil. And that's primarily what the call had to deal with. And what the IMF likes to do is say, well, we'll help you out, but there's some things you need to do on your end. And actually the call was pretty short, and I was one of the people that was blocked, meaning I could listen, but I wasn't permitted to say anything, and I was happy to even participate to that degree. But that's what it dealt with primarily, assisting, well, not just Iraq, but some of the other countries, and not just oil prices, but the problem they had with the virus and the loss in the economic growth, loss of jobs, budget deficits, and all of that.
The reinstitution of the dinar, was that mentioned as part of something the IMF wants them to do?
Not specifically on that call.
Okay. All right. And then lastly, once it reinstitutes, Jim, will it be too late at that point to set up the trust? Because it actually hasn't It won't be too late to set up the trust, but remember, now you have the stepped-up value of the currency. So if you establish the trust prior to the reinstitution, whatever the value of those currencies is at the time of the transfer to the trust, that caps any civil suit against you. If you set the trust up after the reinstitution, you can then be sued for what the stepped-up value is at the reinstitution. So obviously, people need to set up trust, even if it's done post-RV, to protect them from future bad acts. But the issue of protecting yourself from the stepped-up value is lost to some degree if you wait till the reinstitution, and lost entirely if you wait to the revaluation. Okay, makes sense. And last question, and I'll let you go with this. Jim, I've been waiting on this thing for 15 years. What makes you think this thing is actually going to take off now? I mean, 15 years.
Well, as I said on the call, this is the first time since I've been involved that all of the essential prerequisites are in place, namely the establishment of the new government, the work with the CBI being concluded, and the elimination of the auctions and the neutralization of Iran. We haven't had all of, you know what? I'm going to add one more: the elimination of Barack Obama and Maliki, because those two had no interest in the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar.
Well, that poses one other thing. What if Biden gets in there? Trump is screwing up.
No, it's gonna. I don't see that. Well, that is a conundrum. But I'll be honest with you. I see no way Joe Biden gets elected. I see no way that happens.
Yeah, that'll screw everything.
I see no way that happens. I think all of the shenanigans going on are because the guy is so weak. Now, if now you're getting me into another area. My opinion is that Joe Biden was selected because at the time they did not think that Trump could be beaten because of the economy, so he was a throwaway. They didn't want to put one of their all-stars in there. If they think that they have a shot of winning, they're going to remove Biden, in my opinion. This is just, like I said, my opinion, but I don't think that's going to happen. Now, Trump is not a politician by nature, but he has been the president for nearly 4 years, and he has gotten a taste of politics, which I'm sure he did not anticipate. So let's look at it from the standpoint of the people that are advising him. The revaluation of the dinar is going to do what? It's going to create anywhere from 6 to 8 million new millionaires. Are those people going to vote for bigger government and higher taxes? No. So that's another reason for this to happen. Now, I'm just speculating here, but, if I were the guy, you can't ignore politics. You don't do things that are wrong, but you don't ignore politics either. And the reinstitution of the dinar helps Iraq. It helps the United States. It helps the people that have invested in Iraq by purchasing the currency, and it helps the president. So doing things that help you get reelected are not bad things to do unless they're bad for the country. And the revaluation of the dinar is not a bad thing for anybody.
And I agree with that 100%, but the problem is not everybody's a Republican, nor does everybody think about, nor is everybody a capitalist, like most of us do that own this dinar, which means that public sentiment alone could be enough to boot him out of office because people just don't like the man.
Well, I guess you could make that. Well, the way I've discussed it when I've really gotten into politics is the election is Trump's to lose. Biden can't beat Trump. Trump can lose. And I don't think he will. And I don't see the revaluation going that long, although I have stated in the past that for me the backstop is January of 2021. But the reason I say that is because if it doesn't reval in January 2021, I don't know what else the country can do to put itself in a position to reinstitute. Like I said, right now, all of the issues that absolutely had to be dealt with have been dealt with, namely the government's in place, the IMF the CBI's completed their work. We've been told that the auctions have stopped and the completion of the zeros will be done within the next week or two, and the Iran has been neutralized. So I know I'm repeating myself, but I don't know what else is necessary for the reinstitution to happen.
Well, that's what I was hoping you'd say. Thanks again, Jim.
Sure. Okay, Clay. Take care.
You too, sir.
Bye-bye. All right. Our next caller is area code 312. That's Les. What's going on, buddy?
Yes. Yes, sir. Hey, buddy. How are you today?
Oh, my voice is gone. I've been on the phone for the last 4 hours.
Well, you've gathered a group of thorough question-asking listeners, so you got to talk more.
I'm not complaining. It's my gig, and I'm good with it.
Yeah, you are. You're good at it, so we appreciate you. And if nobody else does, I do at least.
Yeah. Okay.
So
what you got for me?
I think that Iraq will probably do their evaluation or revaluation, this month for two reasons.
Wait, you mean the reval or the reinstitution?
Reinstitution and the reval. I'm thinking they're going to get them both done.
IMF has to do the reval, but you're saying, but the reinstitution must first occur.
Okay, well, I'll stick with the reinstitution and I'll go with the reinstitution. So they get it done
shortly thereafter.
Yes, not long after the reval.
Right.
So they have July 1st. They're going to start those tariffs, which means what are you going to charge somebody a tariff for under the dollar value of your country or the dinar value at its current rate? Not going to mean much.
That's right.
And then you've got the fact that the Saudis had news on Friday saying that they were going to increase the rate or the output of their oil. And they were going to do this at the end of the month. So they must have had a 30-day commitment, thanks to Trump, to not flood the market with oil. So is there a likelihood? Is there a likelihood that they can do that?
A likelihood that who can do what?
That the Saudis can increase their oil output by flooding the market with oil.
That's what Trump was negotiating last month with the Saudis and with Russia. He was trying to basically try to stabilize the price, and since those negotiations, it's sort of like a ceasefire, and the price of the barrel of crude globally has gone up in value. So that Trump might continue to have to massage the situation. He probably will do. Now, one of the things that Trump has not mentioned is that, of course, the Saudi military has utilized American weaponry and planes. And one of the leverages that we have is that we can hold back on parts if they do things that we think are counterproductive. So I think Trump is going to do what Trump has to do to get things in line. He seems to be very good at getting others' attention. He recently had a talk with the fishermen in New England who were complaining about a tariff on the lobster imports to the European Union. And the complaint was that the Canadian fishery we're fishing in the same waters, catching the same lobsters, and selling them to the EU without the tariff. Trump just said, well, I'm just going to slap a tariff on cars, and the tariff on lobster will be gone in 24 to 48 hours. So I think Trump's attitude is, look, you play fair with us, or we're going to drop the hammer. And so I think that's what's going to happen with the Saudis.
Well, I heard last week that, or maybe it was prior to the meeting or right after the meeting. No, it was right after that meeting. It was said that Trump told them that he was going to remove the protection that the U.S. have around them if they didn't agree to reduce their output.
Well, so, and that sort of dovetails with what I'm telling you, because by refusing to provide them the parts they need for their military, he basically takes away their capacity. You know, remember, it's the Saudis and the Iranians that are fighting for hegemony over the Middle East. So, not providing the necessary assistance to the Saudi military is almost the same thing as providing assistance to Iran. So, like I said, Trump tends to use the economics as leverage rather than the military, but he will go there if he has to.
Which is a good reason why we have a businessman as president rather than a politician.
Yeah, you know, really just about everything Trump has accomplished, we were told point blank was impossible 4 years ago. It's all being ignored, and that's okay. That's okay. That is what it is. The next few months are going to be really very telling in this country, because things are going to get ugly. They always tend to in an election year, but this is a real unusual situation here. But we'll just have to see. Hopefully, though, the situation in Iraq with regard to the stabilization fund that the United States has provided, the short-term loans that the IMF has agreed to conditionally, and the reinstitution of their currency will happen long before the election.
All right, and the last question is, was there a time limit for the reduction of output of oil given at the time that agreement was made? Do you know?
I don't know the answer to that question. I'll probably run across that in a day or two, because what I'm doing. I haven't dealt specifically with that, but it's indirectly involved. So because that determines the global price of a barrel, which in fact determines the resolution of the Iraqi 2020 budget. So I'll probably have more information about that next week.
Yeah, because they actually need to. If the Saudis actually do that, July 1st, Iraq, who needed the oil prices to come back up, now that they're up, they need to get it done prior to July 1st to avoid the prices falling back down should the Saudis do what they're threatening.
Well, the United States is on the Saudi side. And Iraq, at this point, has tried to be neutral, but they finally had enough of Iran. So, we'll just see how it plays out.
All right. Say hi to the professor and have a great day, buddy.
You too. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right.
Well, Leslie was our last caller. Les was our last caller today. Again, I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to our call. I certainly hope that those of you calling in for the first time and have found some of the things we said of interest will contact us to get our initial no-obligation package. Again, it includes a lot of information about us, everything you need should you decide on your own to go ahead and proceed with establishing a pre-RV trust. You can certainly contact us if you have any questions. We'll be happy to assist you. There will be no consultation fee. Our next call is scheduled for next Wednesday. Certainly, if something of a dramatic nature were to happen between now and then, we'll try to get out an emergency email and schedule an emergency conference call. Failing that, we will be back next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Have a great week, everyone, and thanks for listening. Bye-bye.